Hello and welcome to the Musical Instrument Investigator. Today on the website of Brompton's auctioneers based in the UK, we're going to have a look at their latest auction, which I think is a general musical instrument sale, mainly bowstringed instruments, but there are a few other things here and there. There are 250 or near 250 lots in this, so quite a lot. This is one of the kind of higher level auctions going on in January. Brompton's have some pretty fine sales during the year, but as with most of the places, the real kind of high level sales happen in March and June, so this is not a super high level sale, but it is one of the better ones in January. So this particular sale is finishing on the 29th of January. It's the 24th today, so you've got a few days left to go. I think there's some interesting stuff in here. I've had a brief look over it, but nothing too crazy. We're going to try and go through this as quickly as possible because we don't want to spend too long on it. But there are a lot of bows and violins, etc., etc., but it should be quite interesting. Looks like the buyer's premium is 20% for this, or if you're the first to bid and then you end up winning, it goes down to 18%, which can be quite handy. Bear in mind this is a UK auction, so if you're outside of the UK, import, export, shipping costs, maybe CITES, regulations, all of that kind of fun stuff. Before we begin, just to say, if you do enjoy these videos, please consider subscribing, like, comment, or turn on notifications, because that all helps. Do my best to kind of give my thoughts or so of what's going on in these auctions. I'm not an expert, so take what I say with a pinch of salt and do your own research, etc. But anyway, this should be a pretty good auction, so without further ado, let's just crack on and see what we've got. French silver mounted violin bow by Charles Nicolas Bazin there, 4-6. You'll see a bit of condition reports here. We can also look at the kind of bows in a bit more detail and zoom over, but let's not do that so much at the moment because you've got a lot to go through. French silver mounted violin bow, probably by Louis Morison pair there, 2.5 to 3. If there's something super interesting, we will have a look in more detail. Notes on the condition: frog possibly not original to the stick. Okay. Silver mounted violin bow there, 4-600, so not a lot to say. Head with minor wear to point. Repaired cracks. So worth always checking that, and you can also ask the auction house for additional information or condition reports, or if you're in the UK in London, you can go and ask to look at this stuff. Nickel mounted violin bow there, 200 to 300. Nickel mounted violin bow, probably German, 100 to 150, so you can see some of the stuff not crazy expensive. German nickel mounted violin bow, 100 to 150, nothing too crazy. German silver mounted violin bow, stamped FK Muller, 1000 to 1500 there, so a little bit higher. Nickel mounted violin bow, probably French, 700 to 1000. Nickel mounted violin bow, possibly French again, 2 to 300. Nickel mounted violin bow. A French silver mounted violin bow attributed to Claude Joseph Fonclause, 1500 to 2000 there. Gold mounted violin bow, probably English. Interesting frog there with quite a deep throat. Unstamped ferrule ornately engraved BV. Okay. Nickel and ivory mounted violin bow. Interesting lapping that has there. 100 to 150. There was a CITES disclaimer there, so do bear that in mind. German silver mounted violin bow there, 5 to 700. Another one there, 5 to 7. French nickel mounted violin bow, possibly workshop of Malines, 3 to 4. That's quite a high estimate there. That's actually quite curious. Yeah, stick with repaired bound break, so definitely worth looking at that. Can't see a picture of that, but be worth asking. That seems quite a high estimate. Silver mounted violin bow here, stamped with a hill stamp, but they're not attributing it to the hills. You do sometimes get fake hill stuff, but it's interesting. German silver and ivory mounted violin bow, 2 to 400. Silver mounted violin bow, with a Dodd stamp, this one. Nickel mounted violin bow, nothing too crazy there. French silver mounted violin bow after taut, 2,000 to 3,000 on that. Interesting head. Silver mounted violin bow, 5 to 7. Silver mounted violin bow after tubs, 5 to 7. Silver mounted violin bow, probably German, so it's a lot of speculative things here. The Amati cell that we covered had some speculative stuff, but also some attributions. Good German silver mounted violin bow. Silver mounted violin bow. It's got a stamp there. Victor Fetique, a Paris. German nickel mounted violin bow. German gold mounted violin bow by Emil Hermann. Interesting. Well, it's just got a gold ferrule. I think that's about it. That's had a break as well, 2 to 300. English silver mounted split cane violin bow by Lawrence Cocker. You do see quite a lot of these about. Interesting looking bows, 3 to 400. Silver mounted violin bow there. German silver mounted violin bow, possibly by Wilhelm Christian Knopf. I feel a lot of these estimates are quite high for bows without full attribution there. Silver mounted violin bow for Caressa and Francais. Stick good. Camber needs attention, so it means it's kind of a little bit bent. It does look like it's maybe springing up a bit. 1,000 to 1,500. Silver mounted violin bow made for Hawks and Sons, 1 to 1,500. Silver mounted violin bow. Nickel mounted violin bow. German nickel mounted violin bow. Nickel mounted violin bow, probably Mircore. French silver mounted violin bow, possibly workshop of Louis Bazin, 2 to 3. Silver mounted violin bow, lots of choice here. Quite like that head. It's an interesting head. 6 to 800. Head with significant repaired cracks. New wood near head plate. Yeah, it's curious, that one. French silver mounted violin bow by Emile François Huchard. 700 to 1,000. Stick with significant repaired brakes. Handle with split and frog good. I mean, we are seeing prices of broken bows go up recently. Well, maybe not recently, but for quite a while. Nickel mounted violin bow attributed to Charles Pacat, 2.5 to 3.5. Silver and ivory mounted violin bow, possibly English, 1,000 to 1,500 there. Curious. Amoret stick. Silver mounted violin bow there. Silver mounted violin bow after tubs, 4 to 600. German nickel mounted violin bow. Silver mounted violin bow there. Alright, we're on to the first lot of violins. I think there'll be some more bows later as well. An interesting violin, Tyrol, second half of the 18th century. 2.5 to 3.5 there. 353 length of back. See that? That's quite an interesting violin there. Repairs to table ribs and back. Worm damage in back, so you have to be a bit careful of that. That looks fairly curious. An Italian violin by Bruno Donna Treponti, 2019. I think we always see stuff by this maker. I don't know if it's the same one that never sells, but there's always stuff. Definitely looks like interesting work. 355 length of back. Quite a deep kind of carve on the scroll. A violin, possibly Tyrol, circa 1770. So there's bids on that. 355. So that's some worm on the back of that as well. Worm damage in back, that's pretty visible. English violin by J.D. Nicholson, Bebbington. I think we see stuff by this person in the sale quite a lot. An Irish violin by William Wilkinson, Dublin, circa 1830. That's interesting. So we talked about Perry and Wilkinson, one of the other auctions, and here's a William Wilkinson, which I think actually are really quite nice looking violins. This one also with inked purfling, that's quite common with the Perry and Wilkinson. But yeah, that's a nice looking instrument, that 2 to 4. So I think that's pretty cool. Neck probably original. Looks like it's had some worm damage there, but yeah, interesting looking violin. That quite like that. 357 length the back. A violin, pretty vague. It's one of these modern things which I'm sure is probably out of China with an Italian label. 3/4 French violin. I think we can pass on that one. A violin 2-3. Interesting scroll. Labelled Fabbrica Violini Discalzi Giovanni. Quite interesting back there. 2-3 on that. 348. It's quite small. Violin attributed to Maria Garda Mantua, 1980. 2-3. Always a complicated situation with the Garda stuff. German violin circa 1880, 4-600. Fairly standard. Violin circa 1956. Hard to say there, but low estimate 1-200. Weird button at the back. An Italian violin by Dario Agusi, Vidigolfo, 2018. Reserve is met. Another one of these kind of contemporary Italian makers that we see all the time. French violin, probably by Paul Bailly, Paris, okay, 1890. A violin, that's good, 5-800. Looks a bit quirky, a little bit rough around the edges. German violin, circa 1900. Just skip that. Violin, circa 1900. I think that's pretty standard as well. Violin, probably by Georges Cohn, Lyon, 1934. Quite cool back on that. 3-5. An Italian violin, Circle of Rivolta, first half of the 19th century. I feel like this has been here for a long time, but my brain does go a little bit. Italian violin, Dario Agusi again. I think we can go past that. German violin, circa 1830, 1500 to 2000 there. Nothing super exciting. Violin, South Germany, second half of the 18th century. 2.5 to 4. Quite interesting varnish. Massive repair to the button there. The Vidalm label, 353. Italian violin by Battista Cremaschi, Livraga, 1983. 4-6 on that. French quarter size violin. English violin by John Ernest Watts, Ashover, 1999. I think we can go past that. A violin, possibly Naples, circa 1880, 3-5. Not super interesting. 363 as well, quite long. German violin, Lowendahl, we can go past that. Violin circa 1948, I think we can skip that as well. A violin circa 1780, 4-6. So, sound post crack in table, not uncommon. An Italian violin by Luigi Agostinelli, Milan, 1962, 1500 to 2000. Starting bids of 1300. Quite cool scroll, quite like it. Not really much going on in terms of, I don't know, the varnish is not too bad actually. Quite like the wood choice at the back. It's kind of interesting, like use of the knots there. Yeah, not too bad actually. It's this violin. This has been in loads of times. The one which has like the original top with a later table, sold with the original table. Yeah, interesting. Wonder if the if both tables are by the same maker or not. That's kind of interesting. Should be able to have a look at the work, but yeah, quite labelled Restauro de Ferraris Italo Torino, 1995. So maybe not. That's pretty odd lot. So that's been around a long time. Violin circa 1800, 1000 to 1500 on that. It's got a Carcassy label. Would suspect that's probably a German violin, but you never know. English violin by Ealing Strings, 1990. You see these floating about every now and then. French 3/4. Interesting violin, probably German, so 1850. It's slightly odd. German violin, probably Mittenwald, 1900. Go past that, same as this. Violin possibly by Armando Griletti, Milan, 1981. 2/4 that. Quite a nice choice of wood there. Violin probably workshop of Vincenzo Diaria, Naples, 1955. A lot of this stuff I think is doing the rounds of repeated auctions. French violin attributed to Jean-Baptiste Lemarquis, Miracles, circa 1820. German violin again, 1500 to 2000. 362 length of back. A violin, another one of these kind of dubious modern violins. Kind of trade stuff there. An Italian violin, School of Marchetti, circa 1920. A lot of this stuff seems pretty familiar. Starting bids 7,000. Violin by Luigi Rovati, Buenos Aires, 1922. Really nice back on that. That's quite cool. 357 length of back. Good violin, probably by a member of the Hop family, circa 1800. Nice scroll on that. Interesting F-holes there. Okay. Violin attributed to Andreas Johann Gischel, circa 1760. Definitely need to learn how to pronounce that name. Current bid 180. That has some charm, but also a lot of issues. Cool scroll on that. 363. Soundpost cracking table with patch. Interesting violin, possibly Italian, circa 1760. 1800 to 2,500 there. Wow, 365. That's pretty big. Yeah, quite a nice looking violin. Looks like it's had a lot of issues. Violin, School of Antinazzi, Milan, circa 1900. Violin by Gustav August Ficker. German 3/4. Violin probably German, circa 1880. Violin probably Mittenwald. Can skip that. Right, some more bows here. Viola Bows. English silver mounted viola bow by John Clutterbuck. 2/3. German silver mounted viola bow there. Silver mounted viola bow, probably workshop of Finkel. Nickel mounted viola bow there. English silver mounted viola bow, probably by Edward Tubbs. Nickel mounted violin or viola bow, attributed to Thomas Dodd. Yeah, sometimes these bows are just right in the middle. Camber in need of attention, frog with cracks and filler. An English silver mounted split cane viola bow by Lawrence Cocker. We see these, yeah, all the time. German silver mounted viola bow by Gerhard Penzel. Right, on to violas. An Italian viola, probably by L. Pasqualotti, Trieste, circa 1890-1900, 7/10. It's kind of interesting looking. A little bit rough around the edges, to be honest. But interesting. 397 length of back. French viola, Miracle, circa 1810. 380, that's quite small. An Italian viola by Gabriele Natali, Pistoia, 2004. Really nice wood there. 6 to 8 is the estimate on that. 406 length of back. German viola, 1860. 383, quite small. German viola by Wilhelm August Kessler, Mannheim, circa 1895, 44. That's a really good kind of modern size. Viola attributed to Dante and Alfredo Guastalla, 1935, 426. Another pretty good size for a larger viola. French viola 1870, 376. That's pretty small. A viola 405. Interesting. F holes are quite wiry. Right, that's the end of violas, but we've got an English Viola d'Amore by Michael Plant, Manchester, 1978. 2-3 on that. Sold with a fitted case and 2 Viola d'Amore bows. Okay, interesting. It looks like a nice enough instrument if you wanted one on a budget. It looks like a nice carved head there. Right, on to bows. Cello bows now. Nickel mounted cello bow, workshop of Paysold. Nickel and ivory mounted German cello bow, school of Bausch. Silver mounted cello bow, possibly by Charles Nicholas Bazar. Silver mounted cello bow there, 100 to 200. Stick appears to be good, however, due to rosin build up, much of the stick is obscured. Handle with wear and filler to thumb area, a frog with wear and cracks. So it's a bit of a speculative one. It could have some issues, but kind of interesting looking bow there. Silver mounted cello bow there, stamped C. Dimanche, Venezia. Interesting. French nickel mounted cello bow, probably workshop of Charles Nicholas Bazar. Nickel mounted cello bow, probably German. Nickel mounted cello bow, another nickel mounted cello bow, another nickel mounted cello bow, possibly by Louis Bazar. Silver mounted cello bow, stick 4 to 600. Good throughout, but rosin build up obscures parts of stick. Okay, a nice head on that. German nickel mounted cello bow, a German silver mounted cello bow by Carl Suess. Looks like there's something, maybe just a bit of a knock there. One repaired crack in the frog. Silver mounted cello bow there, 5 to 800. Nickel mounted cello bow. Right, we're on to cellos. A cello attributed to Charles J.B. Colin Mazat, Paris, 1907. 5 to 7,000, the estimate on that. German cello circa 1960. Cello possibly Italian, 20th century. That's really interesting F holes on that, and kind of interesting wood choice. 15 to 20,000 on that. It's quite a curious one for sure. Quite like the looks of that. Lot 133, a cello. Okay, let's have a look. Yeah, that is quite an interesting cello, that. Charles guitar, possibly French, circa 1870. This was definitely in one of the other auctions there. Someone's bidding on it, 50. Italian classical guitar by Raphael Calaccia and Son. Still learning here. Looks pretty boring. German flute by August Richard Hammig, Mark Nikirken there, 800 to 1200. Flute by Ronald Cart & Co. Limited. Collection of books. A quad violin case there. A violin case by Musafia. Looks like an older one maybe. Wooden double violin case by W.E. Hill & Sons. 2 brown leather cases by W. Hill & Sons. Another violin case there by Hills. This is a curious one. An Italian bowback mandolin, bass mandolin, attributed to Giacomo Antonio Rossetti, 1596, 1000 to 1500. Do feel that we might have seen this before in one of the auctions. It is in a pretty awful condition, but curiosity anyway. Bowback mandolin, probably Naples, standard stuff really. Right, some more violin bows. Silver mounted violin bow there. An English silver mounted violin bow, possibly by Thomas Tubbs, 1500 to 2000. Quite like the mounting there. Nice, kind of solid head. Quite like that. Nickel mounted 3/4 there. French nickel mounted violin bow by Charles Bazar. An English silver mounted violin bow by Albert Leeson for W.E. Hill & Sons. Oh, something with a good Attribution there, 1000 to 1500 on that. Cracked a frog on player side, not too bad. Silver mounted violin bow. Nickel mounted violin bow. French nickel mounted violin bow by Prosper Colas. Certificate of Raffin there. French violin bow by Eugene Cugnot-Huri. Another, it's a Pierre Guillaume certificate on that one. Silver mounted violin bow. Silver mounted violin bow by Frechner. French silver mounted violin bow by Marcel Lapierre. French violin bow by Gilles de Holt for Didier. Silver mounted violin bow. German silver mounted violin bow by Hans Carl Schmidt. And a French silver mounted violin bow probably by Charles Nicolas Bazar, 1500 to 2000. Interesting they've changed the image layout for these. French nickel mounted violin bow by Emile Francois Houchard. And a French silver mounted violin bow by Louis Morizot. Nickel mounted violin bow by Louis Bazar. Nickel mounted violin bow by Workshop of Penzal. A French nickel mounted violin bow by Charles and Nicolas Bazar. 2 to 3 on that. Got a Raffin certificate there. There's a picture of the head. German silver mounted violin bow by H.R. Frechner. 6 to 800. These could be really good bows. Silver mounted violin bow. Silver mounted violin bow. Another silver mounted bow. A French nickel mounted violin bow by Nicolas Maire. 5 to 8 on this. Wow, it's quite a nice head. Looks like quite a thin stick actually. 5 to 8 on that. Unstamped solder certificate of Jean-Francois Raffin. Head repaired with spline, otherwise very good throughout. Yeah, I mean, these bows are expensive. It's quite a lot for a bow with a repair. French nickel mounted violin bow by Charles Nicolas Bazar. Silver mounted violin bow. Another silver mounted violin bow. German nickel mounted violin bow by H.R. Frechner. Nickel mounted bow JTL. French silver mounted violin bow by Louis Morizot. An English silver mounted violin bow by W. Hill and Sons, 1000 to 1500 there. Looks like something funny is going on with the stick there. It's like missing part of it or something. It's a bit strange. Stick good. Head with beginning of pin crack handle and significant repair. Yeah, looks a little bit dodgy. Silver mounted violin bow made for Jean Wero. German silver mounted violin bow by Alphonse Riedel. An English split cane violin bow by Lawrence Cocker. He's back again. Silver mounted violin bow. Another silver mounted violin bow. It's worth having a look at this stuff in more detail if that's your interest in bows. For me, just looking for anything interesting. Silver mounted violin bow Workshop of Dorfler. A German nickel mounted violin bow. That's kind of interesting design on that. 2 to 300. 10 bows, some random stuff you can have a look at. Some more bows there. 16 bows, 10 bows, 8 bows. Right, a violin made for Goulding & Co. circa 1810. 325 on this. 351. A violin probably by Giovanni Tedesco, Naples, circa 1880. Nice back. A violin. Once again, looks like these dubious modern stuff. German violin, circa 1820. 5 to 700 on that. Yeah, looks kind of interesting enough. A violin, circa 1880. One of these kind of interesting trade ones. A German violin by Christian Friedrich Schneider, Klingenthal, 1780. 4 to 600 on that. Violin, probably Vienna, circa 1770. A violin, 2 to 3, pretty interesting looking. Scroll is amazing on that one, not from the side, but scroll is awesome from the front, but that is a pretty bizarre scroll there. Violin circa 1890. English violin by Charles and Samuel Thompson, London, circa 1760. 800 to 1200 there. Current bid 700. 2 French 8 size violins. English violin by Robert Thompson, London circa 1750, 4 to 6 on that. Okay. Violin probably by Umberto dell'Ombra, Padua, 1954. German violin probably Mittenwald, circa 1790, 4 to 6. Looks like it's got a fair amount of problems, but cheap entry price there. Starting bids of 350. A German violin, probably Bavaria, circa 1780. 2 to 400 on that. Massive soundpost crack on the back, which is a shame. English Baroque violin by George Stoppani, Manchester, 1981. Needs a bit of setup work, but good maker. So it could be quite a good budget Baroque for someone, probably quite a good instrument. German violin, circa 1900. Violin possibly Naples, circa 1900. Let's have a look. A really nice back on that, actually. I have to say, it's quite nice. Nice varnish, 4 to 6. Yeah, 4 Audi on it. Interesting violin, possibly Naples, circa 1900, after Landolfi. Yeah, that's a cool scroll on there. Really interesting wood there. Yeah, that's a very curious looking violin. 350 length of back, 7 to 10 on that. That's bids of 6 on it. English violin by Charles Bird, Teignmouth, 1930. Let's see. French violin by Nicolas Mathieu, Mircle, circa 1770. Do like some of these older French violins. A German violin, circa 1936. French violin, second half of the 18th century. 3 to 5,000 on that. A violin made for Rudolf Wurlitzer, 1902. Really nice back there. Violin by Luigi Ravati, Buenos Aires, circa 1910. Another one. Really cool back on that as well. French violin by Didier Nicolas Ain, Mircle, circa 1820. .365 though, very long. Violin, circa 1900. A composite violin, circa 1800. I wonder if we've seen this one before or not. German violin workshop of Frechner. English violin by Richard Duke, London, circa 1770. 6 to 8 on that. Violin attributed to Enzo Arasi, Milan, 1922. Quite elongated F holes there, quite long as well. 362. Violin, possibly Italian, circa 1750, 2 to 3 on that, 1600, already bid. French violin, circa 1920. Violin attributed to Francois Barbe, Mircle. Violin, circa 1880. French violin by Claude Francois Villon, Paris on Mircle, circa 1820, 7 to 10 on that. I have to say that is a horrible shape and horrible F-holes, so I'm definitely out on that one. German violin. French violin attributed to Derazy. French violin by Charles Le Lyonnais, Nantes, 1938. French violin by Georges Apparout. Interesting F-holes there, quite a nice back on that. Violin by James William Robinson, Cremona, 1974. 2 to 4 on that. Student of Marassi, it seems. Violin attributed to Francesco Guadagnini, Turin, 1912. 2.5 to 3.5 on that. Quite a nice looking violin, actually, don't mind that. 352 as well, pretty good. 3/4 violin there. Violin, probably Italian, circa 1930. 2.5 to 3.5 there. German violin by Richard Weichold. German violin, circa 1750. 700 to 1000 there. I like the kind of lopsided F holes there. That's pretty good. Definitely got charm. An American violin by George Gamunda, Astoria, 1986. 6 to 8,000, 5,000 to start. One of the good American or earlier American makers, kind of early 20th century or even late 19th. Yeah, tidy looking violin, kind of interesting varnish as well. Pretty cool. German violin, probably by Paul Knorr. A violin, that looks awful. French violin attributed to Charles Adolphe Mocatel, 1850. Quite interesting scroll there. Quite a nice back, actually. 358, the length on that. Violin, circa 1928. It's also actually not a bad looking instrument. Violin, circa 1920. French quarter-size violin. And that is it. There you have it. This is the Brompton's auction, which is finishing on the 29th of January, 250 or so lots. Actually, a few interesting things here and there. Nothing too super crazy, but a few things of interest for sure. So I'll put a link in the description as always. Check it out and see what you think. Thanks a lot for watching, and I'll catch you next time. Bye.